isolated, and even the one who's presenting it, the Montessori guide doesn't necessarily know where it's going, then you don't have the same approach to the presentation. When you know where it's heading, you have that informs your presentation. So you're able to put it out and present it in a way that, because you know it's going towards a certain
there's
way.
awe and wonder behind it.
Welcome everybody. We're here today with just a second.
Do we not know my name, Sarah?
That's not what I wanted to say. Okay.
Not a lot.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back. We are here today with someone very special. We have Amy Spark, who is a Montessori trained teacher and is a student of Water Park, but she also is down in Malta. She's opened her own school and she is doing some really exciting stuff down there. So we're really excited to have you, Amy. Welcome.
Thank you.
And so let's get into it and start talking about, why did you get into Montessori in the first place? You want to say a little bit about your training and your focus where you are now?
Well, I was working in early years for the past, it's my 11th year this year. So I was working in early years and I wasn't particularly happy with what I was seeing. It kind of wasn't who I was as a person, very dictatorial, lots of shouting, lots of children's handprints being forced on paper. And it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I was living in Malta at the time. There were no other training options essentially. So I actually ended up moving to England for Montessori training. And I stayed there for 3 years. Which, funnily enough, I never worked in a Montessori school while I was there because there aren't actually that many. Contrary to popular belief, there isn't one in every town. And if there is, there's maybe 15 children in it. Yeah. So it wasn't really possible. Then when I moved back to Malta, I actually opened up playgroups, parent-child playgroups, Montessori obviously based. And there I was lucky enough to meet my co-director now, Maria, and she had a daughter who was 11 months old. Basically, the school that we kind of opened together was built upon my want for Montessori education in Malta and her need of something that she actually wants to send her child to. And that's grown in 6 years from a nursery to kinder, which is the 3 to 5 year olds. And we just last scholastic year got the first alternative primary license ever issued in Malta at all.
Wow.
So
that's awesome. Wow.
So tell us a little bit, like for those who don't know what a big deal this is, describe a little bit about what this license means and what it's all about.
Malta is very traditional education based. It's based upon British system. So it has banding, it has streaming, it has exams. It's very much you sit at a desk, you have workbooks. Although the government is trying to move towards a more open approach they have a new framework called the Learning Outcome Framework, which is more holistic, gives more time to achieve goals and so on. Obviously very difficult to do. Teachers in Malta, it can be very much the case of they teach the same year for their entire teaching career. They have their lesson plans, which are done after 2 or 3 years, and they teach almost exactly, I'm not saying everyone, but the majority, and what is said very often is that they teach those same 2 or 3 years worth of lesson plans until they retire.
Exactly. It's kind of, you flip back in the school year in your planner and start again.
So the way they're trying to develop education is very Montessori. They talk about this blessed project-based approach, which they don't realize is 110 years old. It's not brand new. They talk about giving children time to achieve. They talk about assessing in different ways and so on. So it is very Montessori. We were actually very lucky that they are trying to move towards something like what we are actually doing. Yeah. It made it easier for us. However, I have to say the biggest burden is one, staffing. Malta is very teacher union heavy. So qualifications for teachers are very heavily monitored. I am a curriculum director. I cannot legally be really in the classroom teaching. So I focus on curriculum, Montessori curriculum. That's my actual job. And obviously we need to be bilingual because Malta's a bilingual country. So there's a lot of work that's done on that side as well. And it's actually really lovely to see the classroom operating truly bilingually. But Malta is not a language really spoken outside of Malta, so resources are very limited, even books. There's no encyclopedias in Maltese, nothing. So yeah, everything has to be made pretty much by us from scratch. But it's worth it.
Right.
We had our first year last year, not the best year to have it, obviously, but we had a very small community of 6 children. And this year we've grown to 22.
Wow, sure.
Yeah, and the majority are coming from our 3 to 5 program.
Which is the ideal. This is precisely what you want, isn't it?
And the majority of them have come from our nursery program.
Love it.
Wow.
Which is even better.
So
not a lot of those in the world, is it?
no, this
Not
is
a lot of
exactly
places in
it.
the
So
world.
you're able to grow it very organically. And so you know that the students you get into the primary will have been, they'll have the Montessori in play the entire time. Compared to a lot of schools that we have, for example, up here in Norway, we have many schools who don't have any chance of a 3 to 6 even, never mind the 0 to 3. And so they're coming in first grade, but you see the difference with the ones who do have the 3 to 6.
And that's what we found very interesting, is that really pushing for the quality early years education, even if we're not talking about full time, them coming in 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, literally 4 days a week for 5 hours, of which 2 are spent eating, 1.5 are spent sleeping at the end of it, essentially. That actually makes the world of difference.
Of course. I mean, we see that. I don't think there would be anyone who would argue with you at the value of having, going through the full sequence, or the full. I'm only coming up with the Norwegian words here. I'm very sorry. The full lip.
Scope.
The whole scope. And I've even found it myself, as the more training I've done, the more I appreciate and understand where each material is coming from, where each concept is coming from, where one thing is leading into another. I no longer have that feeling as a teacher of, why am I bothering to teach this? Because I know where all of it's going.
Exactly.
That's actually
say a little bit about that.
It's about that.
Say a little bit about that, because when you came to Water Park, you were already a 3 to 6 trained Montessori teacher, and then you continued with us to do your 6 to 9, and now you're 9 to 12. Would you like to say? I mean, I guess you did, but you did just say that. But
I just
but
want
how
to say,
was it for you? Yeah,
Sarah, because we always talk about them, and we talked about this another time in one of our panoramas, that having the multiple years is actually so beneficial to the person, because you can actually you know what the binomial cube is for. You're just not teaching a puzzle. You're teaching a binomial cube because you know it's going towards the algebra.
Because otherwise it becomes too isolated, and even the one who's presenting it, the Montessori guide doesn't necessarily know where it's going. Then you don't have the same approach to the presentation. When you know where it's heading, you have that informs your presentation. So you're able to put it out and present it in a way that, because you know it's going towards a certain
there's
way.
awe and wonder behind it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, now when I see, the little 3s and 4s doing the binomial and trinomial cube, it makes my heart sing, because I know that in, 4 or 5 years, we're going to be doing algebra. From having more Montessori teachers, regardless of what age group they currently teach, would benefit, even if it is just literally an evening or a weekend, just kind of looking at where some of the materials actually end up going to.
We, Lisa and I have talked about this, that we want to do these series where the whole Panorama idea actually came from this, where we take a material and we walk it through all the way through the ages to show the different levels and the learning that will happen, the sequence throughout this single material, and just to have a short conversation on what you can expect and how the different ages will interact with this material at which level, and what they're going to be abstracting from it as they go on and where they end up. It's really quite fascinating. But again, it is so important. I see this for ones who are, for example, just only say 3 to 6 trained. and they don't know what's coming next. They don't know where these constructive triangles are heading.
No, the constructive triangles, most 3 to 6 teachers don't see the point of them because they don't realize that they are basically your introduction to geometry.
Exactly.
And that without them, you have a big
Amy,
problem.
we spent how many days? 3 days on with constructive triangles alone. The 9 to 12 group, you know. So there is much further and more complex and very abstract concepts that they're learning with these. But it starts with seeing relationships and putting them together into a puzzle with these triangles.
And making friends with the material, because if they're not comfortable or confident with a material, they won't use it as they get older, because they will be intimidated by it. But coming into 6 to 9 for the 3 to 6 kids, it's very much like they're just in a different room with old friends.
With all their friends, exactly.
It's lovely.
But also,
lovely.
To have the joy of using it too. So they get that wonder, like you talked about, that this is fun. We're enjoying it. We're not starting school and now we sit down with our books, and learning suddenly becomes, hard and difficult and an arduous process. But it actually is still fun. We are enjoying. We're discovering wonderful things. It's algebra, but we don't have that same connection that we who went to public schools, algebra, and everyone kind of goes, ugh, boring.
Even grammar.
Losing all in. Yeah.
Most people, you mention grammar to them and they pull a face. It's one of my favorite things to teach. I love it.
You love it. Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah. So how is it then you said you are, the curriculum director, sorry. So you said you're the curriculum director. How is that for you? Do you have other teachers who are trained in the Montessori approach to?
So in our primary, in our kinder community, which is our 3 to 6, we do have some Montessori trained teachers. We've got somebody that has a degree in Montessori from 3 up until 12. Somebody is 3 to 6 trained. And obviously we're forever putting people on more and more courses. Our primary teacher will do a full scholastic year to be sure that we're good. And then we move on to kind of formal Montessori training. So at the moment, my job is to directly support her in the primary community, because obviously I'm trained and I went through the last scholastic year as well. But my main scope is massive. I'm just going to put it very much that way. Anybody who opens a school, you do everything. From unclogging toilets to cleaning up sick to getting peed on to answering phone calls from screaming parents to dealing with local authorities, all the way up to actually teaching something.
I like how you put teaching all the way at the top.
But this is kind of what we say.
It's getting in it, which is the issue.
Right. That's the joy. That's the joy of teaching, is being in the classroom. I've said this all the time. If it were just me being in the classroom with the children, teaching would be a dream job.
No,
but it's that are going on. But I mean, the main challenges that you're facing then, you've got your school, it's starting to run now. And as you said, you started with 6, you're, up to 22 now. So
that's on top of 30 children in the kinder, and that's on top of close to 70 children between the 2 nurseries.
Right, exactly. So you would think now, as this is your 2nd year, how is that going then, as far as the challenges that you were working through for your first scholastic year?
To be honest, the main challenges that we've actually got are just ones that are brought about by COVID. So for example, stationery should be communal. We can't have communal stationery. Last year the parents purchased the stationery. This year we're purchasing the stationery, because when they have all different things, it's really challenging for them to be able to focus on anything else, because it's all about who has what sharpener and what pencil, which is great. I mean, it's part of the age group, but we can't spend the whole day on that. It's
part of the community. I mean, the 6 to 12, 6 to 9 especially, they're starting to learn to be that part of the group, the moral, the social, all of that. So having, common stationery, it sounds so basic, but it is one of those things that you have this ownership, this community around the stationery. We share our pencils. We make sure they're all sharp, and it's all part of how we want to have it in the classroom.
Again,
so it's a very
unfortunately, we just can't. I'm very much looking forward to the day when we can, because it's exhausting and it takes up so much room in the classroom, but it is what it is. The main issue that we actually had is because our community was so small, that the children were so focused on what each other were doing, even more so than what you'd normally find at that age. They can't get away from each other.
No.
And the teacher, it's just like what we used to see in kinder. If we have below a certain amount of children in the 3 to 6, the adult and the other children become so much more visible. Once you reach a certain amount and in a certain amount of space, the teacher becomes almost invisible, and children can move away from each other. They can find someone else to work with.
Exactly.
So kind of the social dilemmas are not as pronounced because of that. If there's only 6 of you, and you have a falling out with somebody, everybody else is involved automatically.
But it's also, it's so true though. Also, even just in the general concentration within a classroom, you know, if you have 6, you are focused on those other 5 and the teacher is very prominent. But when you have 20, they're buzzing around and you are able to sort of, okay, everyone's doing their thing. I can focus on my, it does make concentration actually.
And it's this massive myth in traditional education, the smaller the group, the better. Oh my goodness, please never give me 6 children ever again. I mean, I love them. Their families were amazing. They believed in us for the first year.
Right.
The children learned, they were happy, they were busy. But as a teacher in the classroom, I was just going, okay, I have at least 20 next year. I have at least 20 next year.
Exactly.
It's okay.
Exactly.